Today, I want to talk about a sentence that really did change my life. It's not a quote that I read in a book, not something a therapist told me, and it's not something that I heard on social media. It's actually a realization, a line that I drew in the sand. I am no longer the victim. I am the motherfucking survivor. Now, before we get started, I want to be really clear with something. This episode, it's not about pretending that painful things didn't happen or that are happening to other people. It's not about toxic positivity, and it's definitely not about minimizing trauma. It's not about blaming people who are still struggling. This is about understanding that there comes a point in healing when your identity has to evolve. You cannot spend your entire life introducing yourself through your wounds. At some point, you have to introduce yourself through your strengths. And that is exactly what we're talking about here today. For most of my life, I just survived. I survived betrayal. I survived lies, infidelity, countless times in both marriages, addictions that were around me, and I survived manipulation. I survived being told that I was the problem, that I was too much. I survived being doubted and having my reality questioned on a daily basis. And I survived situations that were meant to break me. And for the long time, survival was enough, because when you're in the middle of a storm, as many of you know, survival is the only goal. You just get through today. You just make it until tomorrow. You just keep breathing. But eventually something happened. The storms ended, and yet my body didn't know it. And can anyone relate to that? Your circumstances changed, but your nervous system did not get the memo. And science actually explains why. When we experienced prolonged stress, betrayal, trauma, the brain becomes incredibly efficient at detecting danger. The amygdala, that's the brain's alarm system, becomes hyperactive, and your body begins producing stress hormones more frequently. You become conditioned to expect the next disappointment, the next lie, argument, the next crisis, and your nervous system becomes your professional bodyguard. And the problem is that bodyguard does not know when to clock out, even after the danger is gone, even after you've left, and even after you've healed and are trying to move forward. Your body can still be operating from survival, and that is why healing is so much deeper than just positive thinking. It is teaching your body that the war is over. And for me, one of the biggest shifts happened when I stopped asking this. Why is this happening to me? And I started asking, what the hell am I going to do with this? Because these are two very different and completely different questions. One keeps you anchored in the past, and the other points you forward to a future. Now, don't misunderstand me. There were plenty of moments that I was angry. I was pissed. There were moments when I wanted answers, moments when I wanted accountability. I wanted justice. And those feelings are perfectly normal. But eventually I realized something. If I built my future around anger, then the people who hurt me would still be controlling my life. And I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom. Those are very, very different things. Revenge keeps you emotionally connected, and freedom releases the connection. And I chose and still am choosing freedom. Now, here's something that's really interesting. Researchers studying post-traumatic growth discovered something remarkable, that many people don't simply recover from the adversity, they actually grow from it. And not because trauma is good, and trauma is definitely not a gift. Let's be clear about that. But human beings are incredibly adaptive. Many survivors develop deep empathy, greater resilience, stronger boundaries, and more appreciation for life, more authentic relationships. In other words, what tried to destroy them becomes the catalyst for becoming who they were meant to be. And when I read that research, I thought, That is exactly what happened to me. I wouldn't wish my experiences on anybody, but I cannot deny that what they taught me was something absolutely life-changing. I learned how strong that I truly am, and I learned how resilient I am. I learned that my value does not come from being chosen. It comes from choosing myself. And I learned that peace is worth more than appearances. I learned authenticity is worth more than approval. And that being alone is way, way better than abandoning yourself. And perhaps most importantly, I learned that I can survive things that were set out and meant to truly destroy me. And that lesson really did change everything for me. Because you see, survivors eventually stop seeing themselves as broken and they start seeing themselves as battle tested. And there's a difference. Broken says, I'll never be the same. Battle tested says, you're right, I will be stronger. There's a difference, and that's where the power lies. It's not in denying your story, not in erasing the pain, not in pretending that it didn't happen. The power comes from owning your story without letting it own you. And I think that's what Too Sexy to Shrink is really all about. Not about being fearless. It's about being willing to heal, willing to grow, willing to be seen, willing to stand in your truth, and willing to stop shrinking of what someone else did to you. Today, I don't define myself by my worst moments. I don't define myself by my mistakes. And I don't define myself by the people who underestimated me. I define myself by the fact that I kept getting up again and again and again. And if you're listening to this right now and life has knocked you down, I want you to hear me. You are not what happened to you. You are not your heartbreak. You are not all the betrayal. You are not the divorce, and you are not the trauma. You are not all the mistakes that you made trying to survive. You are the person who survived them. And surviving is not weakness. Surviving is proof of your strength. So maybe today is the day that you stop introducing yourself as the victim. Maybe today is the day that you stop giving your pain the starring role. Maybe today is the day that you recognize how incredibly powerful you truly are. Because here's what I know for certain. What tries to break you will eventually build you. Not because you want it to, but because you refuse to let it destroy you. And if it has built me, I know that it can build you too. Thank you for joining me today on Too Sexy to Shrink. And remember, this journey isn't about anger. It isn't about revenge. It feels like it sometimes. It isn't about blaming. It isn't about taking your power back. It's about ownership. Have a good day.